Hello, Jamie and Lucas here with the Fuel Throttle Podcast. And today we're going to talk a bit about, are Harleys really fast and why do we modify them? It comes up a lot on social media and groups with people and friends discussing whether Harleys are really fast or not. Little different perspective here because you got me, I'm in my early 50s, and you got Lucas is in his mid-20s. So he grew up in a little different time than I did. And my background was in non-Harley-Davidson for forever. And that was like through the 80s and 90s and a lot of Japanese sport bikes. And then I had a different Universa racing career there for 12 or 15 years, traveling throughout the country, road racing and motorcycles. So we did that for a long time. And so speed is pretty relative to us, I would say.
Yeah, and how things have changed, it's really pretty age-based, I think, the communities and the subcultures of motorcycling, because I'd say most people probably at some point, if you've had two wheels or you've owned it or ridden, whatever, probably had times where you were big on sport bikes, and then a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times when people are aging and stuff, they kind of move on to the Harleys. I think a lot of it has to do with money too, but definitely a changing and shifting demographic always. How we define going fast has changed a lot too.
Right, for sure. We've all grown up, like, especially, it's easy for me to look at your past because I'm your father and such, but kind of the same thing. I grew up on mini bikes and dirt bikes, and then it turned to street bikes and cars, and same thing about you. You had all that stuff growing up because it's just our family culture.
Right. Yeah, these bikes are fast now too, what you can do with them, and they've advanced a lot recently.
Right,
and
for sure. Speaking of the relativity of speed, before we get into the Harley side, I think like I said before, we got a pretty good handle because my background in racing, but we also have some pretty fast stuff. I got 1,000 horsepower street car. Lucas, how many horsepower does your daily driver have?
Without being on a dyno, hard 700-800 maybe, tough to say, but I mean, it's definitely.
He drives a legitimate 9-second street car.
Right. You have a good baseline
as a daily. So we had a pretty good idea it was fast. Not top fuel, funny car fast or anything like that, but it's relative to the street-driven vehicles. I mean, the performance baggers that we're going to talk about here, I got a Kawasaki H2 as well, besides the Harley stuff. So, and it does have bags on it. So
right.
That's a performance bagger, I guess, right? That one's over 200 horsepower. That's really cool, talking the relativity of speed. And it's something that really comes up a lot. And that's why we're doing this episode. Are Harleys really fast? Are they or aren't they? Well, here's where we're going to start. So take your stock Harley. That's one really great thing about these bikes is you can grab a bike off the showroom floor, like the big twins, the M8 bikes. They're, between 80 and 100 horsepower. Pretty easy right off the showroom floor. You put a pipe on, not to mention a cam. You're in the 130s for horsepower on those. And that makes those bikes really fun.
Yeah, it's a lot different comparing Harleys now to what they were. The ramp of how much they've gained just in power and performance is huge, but not just engine power, but also their ability to handle and how well they ride.
And brakes. And that's the difference between my generation and yours, really, is when I was in my 20s, Harleys had 60 horsepower.
Right.
You never even thought about it. It wasn't fast. I mean, there were some, like when I was racing, there were classes for Harleys. They had a Sportster class that they raced in the AMA Pro and some of the other stuff in club racing. But yeah, if you had a Harley going racing back then, you had its own class because there wasn't really anything it fit into because, back then, even the big twins were 60 horsepower. Not that they weren't great bikes, they just had a different intended purpose. So that's where things changed. We have seen that in our 20-some years of business really change where we set our bar in our builds. Like when 88s and 96 inches, we started making those big bore kits and a lot of 107 kits for a long time. And I very much remember there was a time when we would do a big bore kit and when we'd get, over 100 horsepower would be really good. And then it was 110, it was 120. And then as development and the motors got better and the parts got better, the twin cams went from 96s to the 103s was a big jump for us because we could get close to 100 horsepower putting a cam in. And there was a lot of controversy I talked about in an early podcast.
Right.
Like they thought, no way, can you get 100 horsepower in a Harley, bolt a cam in, and have a 100 horsepower street bike? It was like, that did make things really fun to work on these bikes and see those gains.
Right. Yeah, it was pretty impressive, like on some of those. And then when we got a little bit further along in the twin cam stuff, I remember having the The black Street Glide we had was
Yeah.
a street trim was like
Cindy's-
a 10-second bike.
Yeah, your mom's favorite bike. And talked about, we called it Black Betty. It was a 2010 Street Glide, and that thing was cool. It was like one of the original performance baggers. In fact, I remember very much 8-10 years ago when the performance baggers thing first started. We had been doing this before 2010 already, but our 2010 bike, it got PM wheels and brakes. Then it got carbon wheels. We were one of the first people to put carbon wheels on BST wheels on a Harley. And I remember I took that to the drag race a few times. Lucas was a teenager going out there. I got that in the 10s on just, at the time, I think it was a 124 on motor. And it was just a really, really nice bike. And that thing got piss pounded for a very long time. That's the one we did all our engine development on big motors with twin cam stuff on that bike. And just almost wore the thing out. And then actually Todd that works here, remember he bought that, had that for a while, and he rode it longer. But that's what really came. I mean, we were doing that with those bikes, and at that time it was pretty darn impressive. I remember being down there. Somewhere I got a video. I should dig up a guy on a ZX10. Couldn't ride it very well probably, but I remember being at the drags and lining up at WIR, and when I beat that guy on that ZX10 running in 10s on a Harley, that's the first time I really saw people open their eyes to these things are actually pretty fast. And I remember when MJK, they were coming with some of the really cool parts like swing arms and bigger brake kits and all that stuff. They actually thought that bike, our bike, was their bike, or was ours, or vice versa for a while there. That was pretty neat.
That was 10 or 15 years ago. So by today's standards, I mean, that's a pretty fast bagger, especially something that's on all motor. And I mean, for all intents and purposes, really a street bike. So to now have bikes that are making 50 more horsepower on motor
that was a
still.
big deal. I remember that when I run that bike, I started that had a custom exhaust that we built, really based on our Jackpot 2-in-1, but bigger. And I remember leaving the house. That thing was idle gnarly. That thing it vibrated and rattled, and it was wicked. It was totally wicked. And back then it was right 150, 160 horsepower, which was a ton for a twin cam. And now it's easy to do M8s like that now. So that's came such a long ways. Now the engine kits, it's not uncommon especially now the new Gen 2 bikes, the sky's the limit really, our CVO-ST, for example.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. And the Gen 2s in particular, I think M8s, honestly, just because of how they sound and how they perform and the chassis they're in and stuff, they're already really, really good on street manners. But like that Gen 2 bike, I put a couple 100 miles on that a month ago at Road America, and that's a 180 some horsepower bike it made here on the dyno. And
Pump gas.
Yep. One hit starter, no engine codes, no issues, doesn't do anything. Literally, I mean, if you didn't twist the throttle wide open and it didn't sound a little bit more gnarly, you'd think it was a stock bike. So
that's a super cool
bike
too.
Really good rider. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is these bikes are coming at such a level now that you can take these bigger motorbikes. Even the 143s that we're doing, they were pretty tame and pretty drivable. And I remember one time I took that 143 Road King on this cancer ride, and we got like 80 miles out and in a group of people, and we were talking, and the guy's like, what's the deal about the 143? And we started talking about it. He says, well, is it actually streetable? Can you actually ride it on the street? And I go, well, I got it here today, and me and my wife are riding it, and that was really cool. But it's neat building these streetable bikes. One thing we really want to talk about is the difference from some of the street parts to the race parts. And on the driveline parts and some of the stuff like making the driveline clutch, chain drive, belt drive, there's a lot of controversies and opinions there on what you should do. And you really got to look at what you need or what you're going to use the bike for. That's really something that we try to put a lot of emphasis on when you're choosing your build or your parts, really deciding what you're going to do. And we'll do a podcast further on just that subject, but that's really cool. On the highest levels, like King of the Baggers and now the World GP, the Bagger Cup, that stuff trickles down back into the street bikes.
Right.
It does. It really does. Not even just the aftermarket, but look at the bikes. Look at the CVO-RR. Look at the CVO-ST. Look at a lot of the stuff that's coming on these. I mean, even just the standard CVO bikes have inverted forks and really good brake, Brembo calipers, all that stuff on them. That 100% came from the racing. We get a lot of people say, why aren't you guys doing the bagger racing and doing this? Well, we're too home-based. We're too home-focused here at doing what we do day in, day out and making sure you guys all get your parts and your stuff and keeping our R&D program going versus the racing stuff. And we were involved with a few teams early on, King of the Baggers, with kind of in the background when helping on some parts and components and some of the tuning side of stuff. But at the level they do that at, that is really fantastic and unbelievable. Really. Same goes too with the street racing, like the street drag racing.
Yeah, well, we don't have that much up here.
Not up here, we don't. But
down south, there's some pretty cool grudge racing stuff going on, and that's kind of a good bridge between like what you see for race components and street bikes too, though, because the average guy, if he builds a whatever, take an M8 with a relatively streetable build, 130 to 150 horsepower range, maybe, just for example. If the average guy is not stunting or doing a bunch of hard launches and things like that, they may not necessarily need a chain drive or an upgraded trans and some other things. But a guy who's going to do, not necessarily road race, there's not really much road course you do with baggers. But if you're going to do drag racing and stuff like that, a lot of that road course technology has trickled down.
The cool thing too about the bikes themselves, rider controls that the stock ECU has and the vehicles. You got different modes, different things. You have the wheel slip control, traction control, all built into that. That really is helpful, especially now. We're building some of these bikes that have 150, 70, 180 horsepower for street bikes. They will, without traction control or some of the other rider controls, that really makes a big difference in there for sure.
Yeah, that's come a long way. Mainly in the last couple of years when that stuff got really advanced upon. But.
Yeah, and it's really, like you said, about comparing a street bike to a race bike. You really got to determine what you really want. And one thing that's absolutely awesome subject, because we see a customer will contact us, hey, I seen this dyno chart or that bike. Maybe it's something we did, maybe we didn't. And they go, I really want that. Well, is it really something you want? Because there's different things that you have to consider along with that, from maintenance, from freshening the parts up for how you're going to use it. And a lot of people say, hey, why aren't you all racing, or why aren't you guys involved in racing or doing this or building these kind of engine or suiting those kind of customers? Because by far the most important thing to us is delivering a premium product for street bike and guys the way they're going to use the bike. Because plain and simple, the bikes and the customers we have, they're street bikes. The guys that come here, they want a really good performing bike for the street. You're not going to find us. We don't do E85. You do in your cars.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. Alternative fuels and
that's a good example. I'm not picking on E85 guys because we love E85.
No, it's
just we want to make it realistic for for our customers.
Most guys are on the street. How many Harleys are at the track compared to the street? But I guess that goes with anything.
And our tuning for them too is for the street.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
And we can see that in other people's tuning. Not to pick on anybody too bad, but we can tell the guys that focus more on the drag strip or street racing stuff, because some of the stuff in the tunes, like either the light throttle or idle or starting or rider controls, that stuff isn't set up really very well.
Yeah, more some of it's neglected. Switch. But that's wide open.
But that's what we specialize in, is delivering stuff for a street-friendly, rideable bike. Something you can get on and have killer performance, but also be able to ride the thing cross-country and do what you want to do with it. So that brings us to the second part of the episode, and this is probably going to be a little more fun, is why do we modify these Harleys? Why do we do it? Why do you take a stock bike that already has 80 or 100 horsepower, more or less, and why do you make them have more? Why do you think?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same question. Why does anyone take a 50-year-old carbureted small block or whatever it might be with 200 and some horsepower, and they want to start with that instead of a modern 500 horsepower fuel-injected V8 or all the rest of it?
The muscle car analogy is really good, because it's really the same thing. It's what drove muscle car sales in the 60s and into the early 70s before they crushed it. But it really goes back to, what is the allure of making something that's not inherently fast? Why is it sometimes cooler to watch a family car go faster than a sports car? Like, why were people buying Roadrunners instead of Corvettes?
Right.
Because a Roadrunner was a Coronet or a base B-body car or whatever, versus something that's meant to go fast.
On top of it, too, it's a unique platform. The Harleys have a different character completely than, like the inline bikes and stuff on the market, which pretty much dominate, obviously, the sports segment. So if that's what you want, something that sounds like a Harley, you want something that looks like a Harley and rides like one, but you want something that's fast, that makes 150 horsepower, your choice is to modify a Harley now. So
right. I think it's really cool, because it's taking something that is not necessarily designed or on the surface and making it do something it's not designed to do, make it to do something very well. It's like a thoroughbred horse. You see a thoroughbred horse, you know that thing is going to run fast. But if you go a horse race, what if they brought a donkey out?
Right.
And what if the donkey won the horse race? You'd be like, that's the craziest, coolest thing. It's no different than sitting there watching YouTube videos of a Prius with a Hayabusa or LS engine in it, doing that stuff. Sure, there's faster cars, but it's the uniqueness of making that stuff your own, making it how you like it, and being able to customize your modifications, I think is really cool.
Yeah, I imagine that's kind of the draw why so many people are interested in King of the Baggers too. Is
Absolutely.
I mean, the viewership and attendance at those events has just skyrocketed for AMA, and it's crazy too that baggers, I mean, on a side note, are within like 10 seconds of a fast bike lap.
Oh, they're faster than that now. The King of the Baggers are like a Daytona. They were knocking on 190 miles per hour.
Right.
But on tight road courses, they're on super sport times, and they're not that far off, honestly, off superbike times.
Right, yeah.
But the super sport times, they're actually doing segmented videos where it's really pretty neck and neck. It's really impressive. They're taking these 800-pound bikes and lighting them up and making them do that stuff. You know, it's super, super cool. The other thing that it really has done for us especially is, and for the entire aftermarket, there's entire companies that are dedicated to making your Harleys better.
Yep.
Isn't that so awesome? Like, not even just distributors like us and dealers and shops that build them, but there's manufacturers that's all they do is build parts.
Right. That's not really something that every segment has.
Right.
So.
It's very unique to us.
It's a big subculture too. It's not a small amount of people. Obviously, the amount of people that have Harleys is pretty big relative to the motorcycle market regardless. So the Harley aftermarket is pretty significantly sized.
Yeah, it's really
more
good.
so than anyone outside of it realizes.
And we're fortunate to be where we are in Wisconsin and upper Midwest here. We got SNS right here. We do a lot with those guys. The motor companies right here too, and some of the others like Dark Horse that we all can work together. But having the motor company here is really cool.
Right. This is a good area. And it's also cool, and since we've been talking about King of the Baggers, that we have a really good venue. There's lots of car stuff that goes on at Road America that's really awesome. But
yeah, world-class racetrack right here.
Right.
And that brings up the lifestyle thing with the Harleys, why people modify their Harleys.
Right.
If you like rock music, if you like gatherings, you like being around people that are like-minded.
Yep.
What else can you do that's as big as a Harley? And there's events all over. You want to see a band from the 80s, 90s, all the way back to the 70s probably.
Yep.
You can hear that. And that is super cool to get out and have that community be like that. And like I said, I was Japanese bikes around those circles for a long time, and there was some pretty cool stuff. You got to really go to a big weekend like Daytona.
Right.
Even spring Daytona, in the fall, Biketoberfest stuff. Actually, I was in Daytona for the first Biketoberfest. I was racing down there when they did the first one, because they did that in the fall. It made a pretty big deal out of it, and it really wasn't much at the time. But that's done something. There's a fair amount of metric bikes there.
Yeah, right. They've grown so much because of the Harley involvements. That's an abnormally large subculture of the kind of the power sports stuff. And yeah, like places. Some people don't realize how much of business in the aftermarket it takes up. But yeah, exactly. That's what you get. If you want to modify the bike you have and make it faster or cooler or sound better, it's the bike that people have because you can see by the flags they buy to hang up in their garage or the T-shirts they buy at every dealer. I mean, they're involved and they like the brand.
Well, I mean, face it,
being around that.
having a Harley is pretty cool.
Right.
I mean, it's way cooler than having like a gold. I hate pick on these guys, but having a gold wing, I mean, what do they do when they get together?
Right.
What do they listen to yacht rock?
Right.
Or what's going on there? But cool thing about Harleys is you got a lot of like-minded people. You do that.
Yep.
And then going back to our Harleys are fast for a minute, like they are pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like you rode in the Softail.
Yeah.
That thing honks. That's got 135 horsepower.
Exactly.
And to be honest, like I have pretty sizable motorcycle collection. I think I'm under 50 bikes now, but a lot of that stuff is Japanese bikes. The majority is Japanese bikes. The other bikes are shop bikes or company bikes, but Busa, I have an H2. I got tons of leader bikes from the 90s into the 2000s, some back in the, even some stuff from the 80s. But I get on some of those bikes and I guess like almost like rose-colored glasses where I remember some of those bikes being so fast and so gnarly. And gnarly they are. But getting on some of these new Harleys we're building, a lot of those old bikes got nothing for these Harleys, man.
Yep.
I mean, it proofs in it's riding them, you know.
Yep.
So it's really cool. And I think how it's lending so well is to people that are my age, especially. Like if you got somebody from their 40s to 50s that was a sport bike guy,
Yep.
grew up riding sport bikes. Well, you still ride sport bike, but you grew up riding sport bikes. Now you're not aged out. A lot of these guys too are skilled riders. You got to remember, like through the 90s, that was a really big time where there was stunting, there was wheelies, and God knows I love doing wheelies. So there was times through there where a lot of people were sport bike guys.
Yep.
And it's funny because a lot of our customers from Wisconsin here, they're people I knew back from racing 25 years ago. Them guys are back. Now we're friends again on Harleys. And it's funny because they got a Harley, put their wife on the back, they go do the events, go do the stuff. Some of these guys are even going to drag races a bit, doing some of that. A lot of these guys are like, we do a stock bike for them. They bring it here. We do the mods. Maybe they do some of the stuff along the way. They're like, Jamie, this thing is freaking fast. But it isn't that easy, but to get a bagger Harley into the 10s, completely doable. And I mean, that is legitimately fast. GSXR 1100s, CBR 900RRs, like that stuff was no joke. And now we have Harleys with touring, with bags on, with your wife, and not to mention Softails.
Yeah.
And dynos and some of the other. Pan America, perfect example.
Yep.
150 horsepower. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole catalog, and I mean, there's bikes and segments within Harley alone of different things and different ways you can put them together and build them. But right, exactly. Now you have street bikes from Harley, cruisers, baggers, whatever it might be, are relatively easy to crack 130, 150 horsepower plus. And yeah, now these are running 10-second quarter miles, and it used to be something that was difficult for even these lighter bikes and sport bikes to run and stuff.
Like some of the stuff on social media, somebody will post a picture of their bagger and they're like, my 87 Hurricane would have smoked that thing. 87 Hurricanes had 70 horsepower and less torque than that. And these things make double the torque at 2,500 RPM. So again, until you've ridden one, it's no joke. It's almost like the joke's on us because it's so fun to do this and to see the controversy behind it. It's really, really fun. And that's really what I enjoy is the super cool community and just the motorcycle people in general from all walks of earth, from everywhere. I mean, it's like you never see a group or a segment that can come together like motorcycle people. And that's just really what I like. And the best part of that is customers. That's one of my favorite thing here is for 25 years being able to talk with customer and take them from start to the finish line, getting them there. And that's really what we pride ourselves in here is not doing half the job, doing the whole job. And whether we do the build in-house or help you modify it or you do it at home, it's really the same thing. And on that side of things too, as far as the tuning side, because that's obviously our major forte here is we are able to do that really well. Like a lot of times customers will call in. This happens many, many times every day. They call in, they want this cam, this pipe, this throttle body, these injectors, this stuff, and they have nowhere to do it. They have nobody to help. And the great thing about these engines, they're so easy to work on it. So many people will take these together or have an indie shop that's maybe doesn't even have experience with late model Harleys, put it together, or maybe even the dealer. But that's one good thing that we're able to take them to the finish line with help with the tuning. And we do so much of this without even a bike seeing a dyno here because we have so much experience doing it and doing that. That's really what Lucas does all day. It's helping these people undo that. That's really a big part of what you do.
Yeah, it's part of why we have such a big reach and why we're able to help so many people. I mean, obviously, it's not feasible to have every single person in-house for us to work on, tune their bike, et cetera. But when you've dealt with it enough and you kind of know what to expect and you are used to seeing certain things and tested a lot of parts, it's not super difficult to put some stuff together and really help these guys remotely with.
Tell them how you normally do that. Like say I was a customer and I bought, let's just say a 22 Street Glide, put a Fuel Moto 128 or maybe somebody else's 128 in with a common camshaft and injectors, throttle body, and say a 2-into-1 exhaust. And you got them a base tune, lead us through the process, how you would normally do that.
Right. Well, usually it starts with giving them the most applicable base tune. And even if it's not something exactly that we've worked on, there are certain things about a combination that you can use to determine what you may need to change in the tune before you send it to them. So regardless, once that's established on our end, we send them the tune. And yeah, from there, I mean, assuming everything hardware checks out and the combination is one that we know should perform, it's pretty simple for guys to put some miles on, record some data with their tuning device, and send that back to us so we can make some changes. And depending on the combo, obviously, one guy may be like, hey, this is so close. I mean, there's not really much room for improvement. And other guys, it might be a couple iterations back and forth before we get it really to the point where we don't want to make any further changes. But yeah, overall, I mean, it really just consists of riding, recording some data, and sending that over to us. It's a pretty easy process.
Especially when we have a lot of experience seeing these bikes. Because as we're doing that, we're also building and tuning in-house every day. Yeah. So we see so much of this stuff, and it's one of those things, if your bike does something different than what our bike did or something we see here day in, day out, that's something that we go, okay, literally had that happen just this week. The intake.
Yeah, plenty of things. When you work on a bike so many times, you deal with a certain combination of parts or send a certain tune out to so many people that works and is consistent, there's only so much that can be different from bike to bike. So it definitely, the experience and having firsthand data and work done with certain components and bikes and everything else is really what makes it way easier for us to provide tune support, but also, which unfortunately, I guess is a huge part of tuning, able to troubleshoot hardware and that sort of thing. At the end of the day, when you're tuning, especially remotely, it's not really just about being able to understanding what to change in a tune to make a bike run right. A lot of it really is taking what you can infer from certain data and telling someone what they may need to look into if there's an issue. Or
you can sugarcoat it and make it how you want it, but I can see an exact example of when you're looking at so much data and you have certain ways you look at the data, how you interpret it, what you look for, what seems right or wrong. And that's one attribute that Lucas really has. I'm going to say that part of it is above and beyond what I know and can do proficiently. We just had a guy that had a tune-related issue with some parts. I could hear him talk, and then he asked me, bounce some stuff off me, and I said, it just doesn't sound right. Doesn't sound right. So after going back and forth, so finally he tells the guy, like, you really need to check this or check. So one way or another, either him or his dealer, right?
Yep.
They found the issue. They did, and it was exactly what Lucas thought it was from looking at the data. At the end of the day, we're not doing this once or twice or 10 or a dozen times. It's that a day. The number of bikes are
right now this time of year, just in terms of for people you're going back and forth with, maybe doing more than just simply sending a tune and saying, hey, like, start with this, whatever. It's a couple hundred unique customers a week. And if we include every last customer that, just got a new device or just added something to their bike and purchased or got a new tune from us, whatever it might be, I mean, it's over 1,000.
I use the term common denominator a lot. So that's one thing when you have the reach of, say, 1,000 tuning-related customers a week. There's certain outliers that we can figure out and see just based on the amount of bikes we see and customers work with. And that is really awesome. That is something I'll never forget. When I first started doing this, I had a vision for what it probably could be someday. And one of the big things is when a cloud-based tuning, the ability for us to be able to work with customers. You don't even have to email a lot of it, the tunes and such. I mean, if I could envision that 25 years ago or more or whatever, that I would never believed it. But that's awesome. But even back then, when we first started, I mean, we're gangbusters right out of the dig, man. And 25 years ago when we started, it was a lot of people right there because I was already doing dyno tuning at the dealer and doing all that stuff. I got my dyno and turned the switch on, and it was go. The remote stuff was always pretty big because we were doing like eBay and then after that website and all that stuff too. But it was still a lot. And I remember I had to do all the tuning and all the maps and all the distribution. Now Lucas does the majority of the electronic side of that, like communications with customers and things where I'm more of the hands-on tuning type and working with the net, but it's really great. But again, that all has tied into what makes modifying these Harleys so fun and what making them fast. And don't let the guy on Facebook tell you that is 600 inches faster, So we'll hope it was a fun podcast. We enjoy doing it. As always, if you have any questions, comments, whatever, hit us at the post below, and we'll be back with you soon. Thank you.